To learn about the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Hit the bell notification. So I'm back at the tiny house build again today, and yesterday's video I told you that I was going to work on the attic. I was going to put the plywood down for the attic floor, and then I was going to start insulating the ceiling, and then I could get up there into the attic and actually insulate the roof. And for those that were asked, yes, I'm insulating both the attic ceiling here and the roof above. That's going to be an independent kind of room type of thing. I know it's very confusing to a lot of people why I'm doing that, but there's an air bubble and there's a lot of science behind it. I've talked about it in many videos. And the other thing is it was easier and cheaper to buy 2x4s for the rafters than it would have been for used 2x6s, so I could use the same R19 value. So instead I got to use R13 for 2x4s, so double up, and it's still coming out cheaper, believe it or not, with the double amount of the R13 insulation. When you factor in the cost of 2x6s and the cost of R19, which is for some reason a little bit more expensive than R13 per square foot. So when it all came down to the numbers, it was significantly cheaper. Enough about that. So today I've decided that I am going to absolutely completely focus on the outside. So I got my tape measure and I got my building. I'm going to start figuring out how much metal roofing material I need to buy for the roof and to use as siding. We're going to put the metal roofing material all around the building as our siding, but it's been one of the most dreadful things that I've ever had to do. I've just cannot seem to wrap my head around it. Well, I finally think I got enough information searching online that I can finally start to do something. My building is 16 feet by 12 feet, almost. Believe it or not, the building is 16 feet, and I believe 1 inch. I don't know how the 1 inch came up, but it did. And then I got 12 feet, almost 12 feet. The trailer isn't quite 12 feet, so we built it just to the ends of the trailer, mobile home trailer. Now each panel is 3 feet wide, so the math is pretty easy on the paneling, but that's not what I'm really struggling with. What I'm struggling with is all the trim and the cost of the trim, and just wrapping my head around all this. When you buy paneling, it comes 3 foot wide, but they cut it to the length that you want. So I need to measure from the soffit or gutter board all the way down to the ground, because we're going to use it as skirting also. And then I'll put a door in there, and that would be a little cubby hole, just like mobile home trailers. Now, again, we looked at the numbers. We could have bought vinyl siding and it would have been a little bit cheaper just to cover the house, but then we would have had to buy the skirting, which was going to bring us in much higher than the metal roofing material. I think it's a good idea. I've heard a lot of complaints in the comment section that we're not going to like the idea. Oh, it's gonna bend, you're gonna kick it and it's gonna bend and it's gonna be terrible looking in a few years. Well, okay, I'm not sure why I'm kicking my house, but I get your idea. But here's the thing. If we put skirting around it and I kick it and it looks terrible after a few years, I gotta replace the skirting. Or I gotta replace the metal. Either way, you're replacing something. Well, replacing the metal isn't that much harder than replacing the skirting. I'll just, cut it and then buy new paneling, put it in there. Now at the bottom, I'm going to have to make a frame so I can screw the metal into so it's not flexing around. I mean, there'll have to be some framing involved, but that's not gonna be hard at all. I could probably just use 1x4s and then little scraps at the corners to tie it all together. I mean, it doesn't have to be that fancy. Now, I am going to put 1x4s right here on the outside and on the roof. That way I can screw the metal roofing in every 2 feet. Now, you could put it on the inside, and it's probably preferable to put it on the inside to a lot of contractors, but since I'm working by myself, it's gonna be very difficult for me to get all the 1x4s and screw them in. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it on the roof and on the sides here. The only downside to doing this is the J channels on the windows. If you measure out a 1x4, 1x4 fits right in there. So if you put a piece of metal there, it's gonna really be tight. It's not wanting to go in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not going to bring the 1x4 all the way to the window. I'll give it a little bit of room. That way I just flex that right in and it'll fit right into that J channel. It might look a little funny, but I don't think from a distance you're going to notice it. But in the end, it's still going to be a lot easier for me to do it this way. I wanted to get the insulation on, and you know, there were just a lot of things I had to do, and the timing of everything. If I hadn't put the insulation in first, I wouldn't have been able to get the 1x4s. I'd have been stalled again. So I've been trying to progress forward and think, how can I do things? When we originally thought about building this building, we didn't think about putting plywood on the outside. We were just going to use 1x4s. That was our first plan. A lot of buildings that use metal siding only use 1x4s anyways. Well, we went ahead and decided to go ahead and give it a little bit more strength with the OSB, and we found the OSB really cheap. This window does not have a J channel, so I'm going to have to buy one. When you buy them, you attach it, you cut it to length, and you attach it before you put your metal siding up. You do that with vinyl also. They come with little J channels. This window here we bought used. It's a replacement window, whereas new construction windows you saw has a J channel already on it, like this one. Now the one I just showed you on the other side that has a J channel, that's a hybrid between a new construction and a replacement window. It didn't have the little tab right here that comes on new construction, but it had the J channel. Now on the roof, that's where things get really confusing, is you got to buy all the other attachments. And I hear so many people in the comment section, oh, it's called this, oh, it's called that, oh, it's called this. Well, it's very confusing. That's why I've been really stuck on this. You got the fascia trim. The fascia trim goes right here on the out right there. But here's the sad thing is you also have what's called an eave trim. The eaves trim goes right on top of the fascia trim. So you gotta buy two pieces for one spot. You got the gable rake. The gable rake goes up on this side. So it's basically like the fascia trim, except it's for the gable side. And then you got the ridge cap that goes on the peak. So the ridge cap goes all the way across from one side to the other. And then you have the L flashing. The L flashing goes right here on the corners. Now, when I brought this up, I couldn't find the name to it for the longest time. Dozens of people in the comment section commented, oh, here's what it's called, here's what it's called, here's what it's called, here's what it's called, and nobody got it right. That's how confusing it is to put metal siding, metal roofing material on the walls. You can find a ton of information about the roof. You go to any website, Menards, metal roofing material companies, and they got it all listed out. But when you start getting into this, onto the walls, it's much more difficult. And if you don't know the name of something, it becomes even more difficult. I said my building is 16 feet long, but my roof is 18 feet long because I got to consider the overhang on both sides. I made a mistake on the other side, and it's an inch longer than it's supposed to be. So it's supposed to be 18 feet across, but it's 18 feet and 1 inch across. I did find out though that the gable rake will cover that mistake. So each panel being 3 feet long, I'm gonna need 6 panels on each side for the roof, and that'll be 12 panels total. Plus, I don't know how long the gable rake is and all that, so I'll have to, when I call them, I'll ask. But I know what I got. That's gonna be 8 feet on each side. So I'm 18 by 8. Well, I'll just ask them, how long does your length of gable rakes come in? And when they tell me, well, it's 8 feet or 10 feet or whatever it is, then I can make a determination of how many I need that quick right on the phone. There is a reverse L flashing, I forget what it's called, that you should have to put, you know, on the trim of the wall and the gables. So right here also. I've decided I'm not gonna do that. I mean, this stuff's pretty expensive. You know, we're talking 20 bucks a piece for things. And I would need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 160 bucks. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to trim this in 2x2s. I may not even trim this side, depends how bad it looks. There's no cutting involved on this side. But you know, I'm gonna have to cut the gable out here. All that's gonna have to be cut out. That might look bad, so I'm just gonna put a 2x2 right there to trim it out. We're gonna paint it the same color that we painted the gables. That way it matches. The color of the siding that we're gonna get, I'm hoping that we can get tan and brown trim. That's what we're really looking for. Now, when I come to the gable side, I got to figure out, and I've already made my decision, but what I had to figure out was, do I want full lengths? Or do I want to try to measure out and tell the person over the phone each individual panel length? And I decided that's just too complicated. So I'm going to waste some money. This distance at the corner up is going to be shorter than the distance from the center up, because it's at an angle. So I'm going to get full lengths. Now, of course, I also got the window that I'm going to have to cut around, but I feel pretty comfortable now. I think if I'd have done this even a month ago, I wasn't ready. I was not mentally prepared. I hadn't done enough research. So I hope I can inspire you to put your mind around things before you start a project. Thanks for watching.